Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Greg DeSell from TechNec. Thank you for joining us for another of TechNec's webinar series as we welcome our partners from LEA Professional today. We've set aside 45 minutes for the presentation and about 15 minutes at the end for a Q&A session. Please take note of the Q&A section of the Zoom control panel for any of your questions. If we can't get to anything during the presentation, we'll certainly follow up at the end. And of course, if you're experiencing any technical issues with the video or audio, you can use the chat section to give us a heads up. With that said, we're excited to unveil the LEA Professional line. Dealers and installers are going to be pleased to not only find out about the many forward-thinking features of the LEA Pro line, but also helpful to learn that the distribution channel is tightly controlled to protect you and your business. And here to tell us more is Joey Palkowicz. Welcome, Joey, and thanks for being with us today. Please introduce yourself and tell us more about the LEA line.
Hey, thanks so much, Greg, and hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us some time today to share more about LEA with you. I'm actually calling from South Bend, Indiana. That's our global headquarters. So for those of you that may be into cars, we actually sit in the old Studebaker factory here in downtown South Bend, Indiana. So as you can see behind me, this is not a background. This is actually our global headquarter office, and it's where Studebaker was manufactured for over 100 years. So pretty cool, iconic place. And now it's a technology hub with a bunch of technology companies and in our Renaissance district. But so that's home base for us. Wanted to share a little bit more with you guys today. First, just about LEA as a company, and then we'll dive into the products. As Greg mentioned, TechNec has our inventory on hand. They've been a very valued partner of LEA, helping us pioneer the brand for the last couple of years. And speaking of that, so LEA, just to give our quick backstory, we actually launched the company in January of 2019. So we are now in our second year of business, and we're doing very well. We've went from a very small startup company to now we're really a growth company. Just to kind of share some of the details behind how we came up with the name and the brand and all that. So a lot of people call us LEA or LEA or LEA. We don't really care. We do have a shark fin logo as our company logo. So as you can see on the slide, our founder and CEO is Blake Augsburger. And Blake, like most of us, came from Crown Audio. But Blake had a little bit of fun. And so LEA actually stands for Loud Enough Audio. That's how we got the brand name. A lot of people do consider LEA an amplifier company. What you'll find out today as we go through the product is that we're really a technology-driven company. So we are the first and only IoT cloud-enabled amplifier solution. We call it a smart amplifier in the industry. So we're not just an amplifier company. We do more than that. And so we'll share first more about the company, and then we'll go through the LEA what, our product, and then final wrap up with the LEA way. So just to put some faces with the names, and by the way, as Greg mentioned, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them in chat. I will do my best to monitor that. And Greg, if you see something that I haven't answered, please let me know, and we'll be happy to discuss that, or we'll discuss it at the end. So, all right. So as you can see at the top, we have Blake Augsburger. Blake is our founder and CEO. And so Blake actually started back in the industry in 2000. He was brought in as president of Crown International. So Blake oversaw Crown for 6 years, did very well with it. And so by 2006, he was then promoted to executive vice president and president of Harman Pro. At the time, Harman Pro was about a $500 million business, and Blake grew that into a $1.1 billion business by 2016. So in 2016, Blake really wasn't sure what his next move was inside of the industry, so he decided to depart Harman and took some time off, just trying to figure out his next business venture. And so as some of you may know on this call, Harman was then acquired in 2017 by Samsung. And so that led to a large restructuring within the organization. And most of us that you see on this slide, we were based in Elkhart, Indiana at the Crown location. Well, by June of 2018, due to the Samsung acquisition, the Crown location was shut down, and Harman took and moved engineering to Shenzhen, China, where they lumped it next to their lifestyle division. and manufacturing was moved to Mexico. So Blake saw that as the perfect opportunity. And so after the engineers were let go from Crown, Blake hired up 10 of the best Crown engineers, as well as the team that you see here on this slide. And we launched LEA in January of 2019. So as I mentioned, we've grown very quickly. We're doing very good. We actually have grown from a tiny little startup to a multi-million-dollar business in just under 2 years. Most of that is thanks to a lot of hard work. One of those key individuals on this slide is Bradley Drummond. And Bradley's actually been out actively engaging our consultant communities. So LEA is actually already currently being specified by almost 200 consulting firms all over the globe. So we've made a large impact there on the forefront. One thing too that I figured I would touch on during this call for everyone, as I know it seems to be a pressing factor for most, is how we do our supply chain and logistics and how we do that differently. So we, as you can see on this slide, have a few different partners. The one I want to draw your attention to is Zollner. So Zollner Electronics is a German renowned manufacturing partner. And so the reason that we selected them as our partner is first and foremost above anything is quality. So Zollner is an automotive as well as an aerospace manufacturer. So they do all the electronics components for Tesla as well as SpaceX. So everything that they measure is very, very high stringent standards. But also too, logistically speaking, even though they are German, we actually selected their Costa Rica facility, which is a world-class facility. And that does a few things for LEA. First and foremost, it's trade-free, duty-free between the U.S. and Costa Rica. Our products are TAA compliant for any type of government installs, and we can bring product in much quicker than most of the major players that reside in various parts of Asia. So really what that all means for us, as I know there's a lot of impacts to supply chain currently and probably most of the projects that you're working on, we can't say that we've seen the same. One of the things that Zollner is very good at is they have a very large buying power because of the size of the company, and they are also very proactive in the raw material sourcing. So a lot of people know about the AKM component shortage. We actually have that component that most manufacturers do not. So we've been building product on a weekly basis, and we've been delivering products daily to our customers. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that as I know it's a big sticking point for most as you try to source inventory. Please feel free to keep LEA in mind, and I think you'll see too, as we talk next about the product, the actual benefits of our Connect series. So with that said, let's talk about the product. So what we have is our Connect series amplifiers, and these are an install-oriented amplifier. And they're made to be rack mounted, and they can take pretty much any abuse you can throw at them and usually come back for plenty more after that as well. So with our Connect series, there's essentially 3 ways that you hook the amplifiers up to a network as well as control and monitor the amplifiers, because remember, they are a smart amplifier. They're able to tell you, look across over 500 parameters that you can monitor as well as control either from our web UI, as you see on this screen, or even from our cloud platform remotely anywhere in the world. So when you hook it up to a network, our amplifiers are very easy to hook up. You can use 3 different options. First is a standard LAN connection, so a Cat5 or Cat6 cable. You can also hook our amplifiers up to the existing venue Wi-Fi. Or as an added bonus to the Connect series, we also have a built-in access point on all of our amplifiers. So the cool thing is with the access point is that what you do is you go on the back and there's a button on the back of the amp you press. It'll hotspot itself. And then you have a one-to-one relationship where you can go in using our web UI and actually go in and set up and configure that amplifier without having any other network present. And then, of course, you can also fully defeat that access point as well after you're done with it. So if you're putting it in a government, corporate, or wherever where you can't generate Wi-Fi signal, that can be fully defeated. And that's the cool thing, that's why we call it the Swiss Army knife of amplifiers, because we're finding in all applications, from very small commercial install to high-end commercial install that our amplifiers are fitting very well. And even on the residential side of things, our amplifiers have found use for it. One of the cool things too to point out is that our amplifiers, as you can see on this slide, they fit in a 1RU form factor. So they're very slim, very sleek. There's no knobs or buttons on the front panel of the amps, as you saw in the video at the beginning. And then also our front grills, they're magnetic grills, so they're removable. And so you can pull the filters out of the back side of the grill once you have the grill popped off and just very easily clean the filter by washing it. We do also have adjustable front rack ears on our amplifiers. So depending on your mounting needs, maybe you need to mount the amplifier underneath a tabletop or even on a wall. Well, the rack ears rotate straight up to mount underneath a tabletop, or you can rotate them around 180 degrees if you want to set the amp on something. So very, very easy to use. And then basically on the back panel, we use all Amphenol Anytech input and output connectors. It's a Phoenix style connector. And the other thing is that, so when you use the inputs on the amplifier, the inputs and the outputs, we have essentially two different variants of the amp. So we have a DANTE Connect model. Our DANTE models have been very popular. We use the Broadway 8x8 card, which is Autonate's latest and greatest card. And then the only difference between that and our network models is that the network models do not support DANTE or AES67. So that is the only difference between the two models. The other great thing about our software is that the software is designed, again, with ease of use. So our web UI, as you can see, it's actually all browser-based. I'm going to take you through that here in a few minutes. But you can use a phone, tablet, or PC in the web UI. Same thing with our cloud, all browser-based. There's no subscription costs on the back end. So when you buy the amplifier, you get the cloud included for free. And same thing, you can use a phone, tablet, or PC to access that virtually anywhere in the world. We use Amazon Web Services. And then we do have some APIs as well, and we'll talk more about those. So just to run through model breakdown next, as you can see, again, we have our DANTE Connect and our Network Connects. So the only difference when you look at our model numbers is that our DANTE models have a D on the end of the model number, and the network models do not. So we start out with the Connect series. We have our lowest powered models, which are an 80 watt by 4 and 8 channel. We then move into a 160 watt by 4 and 8 channel. We have a 350 watt by 2 and 4 channel, and a 700 watt model by 2 and 4 channel. And so one thing to note, when I say those power handlings, that is per channel. So 700 watts per channel across the board. And also later this year, we will be introducing our high-powered models, which will be our 1504. The big difference with the 1504 versus everything that's currently shipping is that the 1504 will be a 2RU design. It will have some advanced DSP inside of it. But that'll take us to the upper end of the install range for larger arenas and things like that with a bowl system inside of it. So also, as you look at this slide here, you can see that our Connect series, we can drive any load. We can drive anything down to a 2 ohm load and anything up to a 70 volt or 100 volt load. And that is fully selectable per channel. So as an example, if you are driving, maybe you're doing something where you're doing maybe a landscape speaker setup and you're running a 70 volt line, and channel 1 is going to be 70 volt, but then channel 2, you might have a subwoofer. Well, that can be 2, 4, 8 ohm, whatever you need for that subwoofer in LoZ format. So each channel is individually selectable across the lineup. Okay. So just a little more on our feature set. I won't get too in depth here, but we do use a universal switch mode power supply. So we operate anywhere in the world, anywhere from 85 volts all the way up to 277 volts AC. So really what that does for you, if you ever have a brownout condition or a big line swing in voltage, there's no clicks or pops on the output stage of the amplifier. The other thing that we built our power supply around is we have a proprietary feature on the Connect series where essentially it's unlike any traditional bridging that you might be used to. So with many amplifier brands out there, when you do traditional bridging, you take channel 1 and 2, you tie them together, and then you double your power output of the amplifier. Well, with LEA in our Connect series, what we do is we have our smart power bridge technology where, let's say maybe you do have that subwoofer zone as an example in that landscape speaker setup, and the subwoofer is more power. So maybe you have our Connect 354, which again is a 350 watt by 4-channel amplifier, but your subwoofer is higher power than that. Maybe it's 600 or 700 watts. So essentially what you can do is you can go in using our web UI or our cloud, and you just click a button to engage Smart Power Bridge. So let's say we're going to engage channel 2. Well, when I engage that, I double the power on that channel, so I get 700 watts out of that channel. But in return, unlike traditional bridging, I don't sacrifice any other channel. So you're probably all thinking, how do you do that? That's pretty cool. It definitely is. It's a very flexible technology. Really what we're doing with that is we have extra overhead built into our power supply. So all that we're doing is we're actually just adjusting limiters inside the amplifier to feed more voltage and current into that channel at one time. So with our Connect series, you can do any single channel in Smart Power Bridge mode. The limitation is it can only be one channel. But you have the selectability, maybe as your design changes last minute or whatever, you can engage any single channel that you need to. Additionally, I'll just touch on sound quality as well. So with our Connect series, sound quality was not something that we skipped on. We have invested a lot of time and money into making sure that the amplifier sounds as good as it looks. As you can see up here, it is the best looking gear you'll probably ever put in your closet. We like to joke about that. But what we do for sound quality is we use 96 kilohertz processing throughout on all of our amplifiers. Our DSP suite, which we'll talk about in the web UI, has less than a millisecond of latency. And we also rate all of our power and distortion values full open range. So they're true values. They're not inflated values like other manufacturers out there. Okay, so I also mentioned early on that we're very easy to integrate when you're hooking the amplifiers up. And so one of the other things we do is we have some APIs. So we integrate well with quite a few of the major players out there. We have the QSYS API plugin on our website for free download. Same thing with Crestron, Extron, Atlona Velocity, and Utology. So those are all available on our products page or our website. You can download those. Then we can integrate. And if there's something that you don't see up on this slide, we also have our own open API where we communicate with TCP IP commands or WebSocket commands. And so you can send and receive any commands or element that you need to inside of the amplifier. So additionally, one of the other things that we've been working on over the last several months is speaker tunings. So it makes it even easier to integrate the LEA Connect series. If you're doing an install, you have a specific speaker manufacturer. We have 11 manufacturers currently in our library. You can see most of those up here on this slide. But basically, what will happen is when you import the tuning, it imports all of your speaker settings. So your crossover settings, EQ, speaker limiters, and so forth. So really, it takes all the hard work out of setting up an amplifier, and you know, just about anyone can do it, which is great. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to pivot and take you through our web UI as well as our cloud. And so with our web UI, because we have an IoT smart device, it's very simple. Basically, all that you do to access our web UI is once the amplifier is connected to a local network, it will then assign itself its own IP address, which will be displayed here on the front panel of the amplifier. So once you have that IP address, because our amplifiers default DHCP right out of the box, you just take that IP address and type it into a browser, whatever browser you prefer, and then from there it serves open our web UI. Again, there's no apps to download. We made it very intuitive. So let's go ahead, let's transition. I'm going to open up, I have Technic's website open here. And so You can see here I'm just using Firefox, and all that I do is to access the web UI is I type in, I have an amp here on our local network, so I type in the IP address, which happens to be 10.8.2.169, and hit enter. And then you will see it populates our web UI. So one of the great things about our web UI is that it's very intuitive, and you can see there's a bunch of amplifiers here in the left-hand pane. That's because we use a self-discovery mode. It's a UDP discovery mode. So even with a single IP address, you'll be able to see all of the amplifiers there that are displayed in the left-hand pane on our local subnet. And so from there, you can then go ahead and you can click into any one of these amplifiers. Here's mine as an example. And then you'll see we have all of our navigational icons across the top. I just have mine hooked up to my iPhone right now, which is just pushing some program music through. So you can see we do have live metering on both the input and output stage of the amplifier. There's no speakers hooked up, so I'll make some adjustments to show you guys. But I want to run you through each one of these icons and tell you a little bit more about our DSP that's built into our amplifiers. So first here, we have our channel input menu. And so basically there, I'll work through channel 1 as channels 2, 3, and 4 are all redundant to what channel 1 does. But at the top here, we have our output fader. You can see everything's very quick as I drag that fader around. There's a channel mute, mutes here as well as down here on the amplifier. And then we also have a primary and a secondary input. On the primary input, we have the same thing, our input fader here. And it's also a fully routable matrix. So I can select any input. So there's 4 analog inputs on this 4-channel amp. I can select any of those. Or if this were the DANTE model, there's also 8 channels of DANTE that you can select and route as well on our DANTE models. So I select whatever input I want on the primary. I come down and I do the same thing on the secondary input. It's a fully routable matrix, so I can select any input. One of the great things about this is that we've built in a couple different override modes into our amplifiers. So, you know, we've done all different applications, maybe in a school where you have a paging application, or in a warehouse, something like that. If you were to hook a paging system up to our amplifiers, you can use this first mode here, auto override primary input. And so essentially what will happen is anytime a page comes in, the amplifier will priority override whatever program music's playing. You make the page, and then it reverts back over into that primary program music once the page is complete. So there's no external DSP required for that. That's all done with our web UI here. And then same thing, there's also a signal sense override. Maybe you had a DANTE set as your primary, and you needed an analog routed back on the secondary to the same source for redundancy. So if the DANTE ever failed out, it would automatically revert over into the secondary source upon losing that signal, so you always have program music present. Okay, we also have channel settings, and so here you can name your channels whatever you'd like. You could type it in right here under channel name. And then as I mentioned early on, we do have selectable LoZ and HiZ settings. So maybe for this mid-range driver, I was going to run that at 70 volts. So I can select the drop-down. I would select 70 volts, but maybe the subwoofer is going to stay at LoZ. It's a 4 or 8 ohm sub, so it's going to stay LoZ. This is a 4-channel amp, so channels 3 and 4 down at the bottom here, I can click those. Or I can also hold control and zoom out, and then I can actually work across all 4 channels in the web UI very quickly and efficiently. Okay, so next we would set smart power bridge settings. So let's say, as an example, maybe early on I was going to have my sub on channel 4, but now last minute the sub has changed to channel 2. So instead of having to go and rewire that subwoofer and all the wiring on the back of the amplifier, all that I do with the Connect series is I now go down here and I click channel 2. Channel 4 comes out of smart power bridge mode. Channel 2 is now engaged. So again, I am doubling the power. On this 700 watt amp, I am getting 1400 watts out of that channel. And that's it. There's nothing else you have to do. So next up, we also have a signal generator. And so here there's a few different options. So we have pink noise, white noise, or even a steady tone. And so when you select tone, there's also a frequency bar here. Maybe I want to take and I want to test the speaker. Well, I can do a full frequency sweep as well here by grabbing the bar and sweeping it. Or I can even click in, and if I want, I can input a specific value that I want to put downline. Okay, so next up, we do have our crossover settings. And so this menu right here is where you can see speaker tunings right here. So that's where we export and import speaker tunings. So it's very simple. All that we do is we click on import. And then from there, we can go in, and I have essentially all of our speaker manufacturers downloaded from our website. And so let's say maybe you're deploying a Sonance speaker as an example today. And maybe we're going to do a landscape speaker. And I'll just grab the first tuning here, this HS12T in 70-volt mode. And so I click open. You'll see this now switches over. The channel name, the output name has renamed to the speaker tuning. And so now it also set all of my crossover settings, EQ, and speaker limiters. And we'll run through that here next. So really at this point, there's not much else that you have to do inside of the Connect series. It has set those speaker settings accordingly to the manufacturer recommendations. But you can go in and make minor adjustments if you need to. So maybe you need to add some delay. Here you can click in, you can add up to 100 milliseconds of delay per channel. You can also flip polarity on the fly per channel right here. And then this tuning used both a low and a high pass filter. So if I click the drop downs here, you can see the low pass filter was a Butterworth 24 dB per octave filter at 100 Hertz. I can make any adjustments to those that I need to on the filter slope or the frequency. And same thing on the high pass filter. Next up, so I believe this is actually a subwoofer. So there's no EQ that was needed, but we do have 8 bands of parametric EQ if you do need it. And so if you drop these down, here you have gain, frequency, and Q factor adjustments that you can go in and change as needed, and then you just enable the filter once you've changed that. And by the way, everything that I'm doing in our web UI, this is all live adjustments. You don't have to go up and save anything. Everything is done in real time. So you can actually hear that, as you're walking around, maybe tuning a system or whatever. And so our next icon here is our limiters. So we have both an RMS and a peak voltage limiter. So you're not going to overdrive those speakers and blow them up. Same thing, these are set per the manufacturer specifications. So nothing else that you have to do here. These can be left alone. And so lastly, another thing that we also do in our Connect series is we monitor a lot of different parameters. Again, this is a smart amplifier. You think about a smart device that you might have, maybe a smart doorbell or, a camera or something like that. Well, this has similar functionality, but for an amplifier. So what we do here is we have real-time load monitoring where we can monitor the load downline. So maybe you have a 70-volt line and maybe you have a speaker drop out because a contractor comes in and cuts a hole in the drywall and goes right down through your speaker line. Well, what will happen is when you set these limits, you have a low and a high limit. This will measure real-time impedance at all time downline. And so if that carpenter comes in and cuts that line with a Sawzall, this will actually let you know. We call it events and fault reporting. And so if that does happen in that event, these emojis that are in our web UI will go from a smiling face to a frown face or a shout face. And so if that happens, if it goes to a frown or a shout face, you can then click into it. Or if you go up top here to your eye icon, you can go to events and faults. And here we have a full timestamp log with date and time stamps, as you can see here. We have the channel and the measured impedance. So you will be in the know before the end user is even in the know on what's happening. And this way you can take a very proactive approach to maintaining that audio system at all times. Okay. So we also have the icons across the bottom of the amplifier here. They do have multiple functionality. First is our power icon. So we look at real-time line voltage and line current. We also have an auto standby mode. So if you don't want the amplifier to be awake when it's not in use, it'll put those channels into a sleep mode when not in use, and then wakes them back up once you shoot an input signal downline. We talked about our emoji. The next icon here is our network settings menu. So you have your 3 ways to connect to our amplifiers. You can also fully disable the access point. As I mentioned early on, right here, you click this button and click yes. Or if you need, you can uncheck DHCP settings if you need to configure a static setting. This icon is our global channel mute. And then we also have our green menu. And so here in the green menu, we look at real-time power usage. And another function that we're also working on in our Connect series firmware, it's not yet active, but it will be in an upcoming firmware revision, is our PoE functionality. So if you were to take and put our amps on, say, a PoE switch that's on a UPS backup, in the event where you lose AC mains to the amplifier, we'll have the ability to do what we call reporting from the grave. Where we keep our network card live, we can monitor and report back on all the sensors inside the amplifier, and we can even give you the exact time you lost AC main power voltage to the amplifier. So there's a lot of redundancy built in, and you know, it really is a smart device that gives you all types of information, you know, that you may need to know at any time within the audio system. So that's it for the web UI. We do have a light mode and dark mode. You can also go in and you can password protect it. If you click on the eye icon, you can go up to amp settings here, and then you can password protect the amp so no one can get in and make any adjustments without your knowledge of that. And then we have a bunch of info that you can also input here for asset info and your installer name and contact info, and you can also see all of your device information. So lots of good stuff there in the web UI. And I'll pause for a second here. Greg, I don't know, is there any questions so far in the chat?
There are no questions in the chat, but I actually had a question based on what you just showed there. Let's say somebody had installed one of the LEA amps and then they switch over to a new integrator or system installer. How do you pass over control on these?
Yeah, so the good thing is with our cloud is there's no back doors to it. So that means that if someone is trying to get in that shouldn't be in, they're not going to be able to. However, there is a full factory reset. It's a very, very small button on the back of the amplifiers that you would need a paperclip to actually reset it. But that will fully factory reset everything, including the password on the amplifier.
So it's kind of like an Ethernet router. In that regard.
Exactly. Yes.
We actually did get a question very similar to that, I guess. It says, can you have several passwords for different humans?
Great question. So the answer is it is coming. So we are working on that in one of our next firmware revisions with our cloud platform. We call it different user permission levels, where you might just have someone that wants to have maybe like a volume right or a mute right, but then you need full administrative access, and then maybe a technician needs specific access. That is coming in the future. I believe somewhere probably 2022, right before or right at early 2022. So.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Yep. That runs the questions at the moment.
Great. Well, so speaking of cloud and connectivity and all that, that's the next thing that I want to show you guys here. Up next, it's a pretty cool platform. Again, super easy to use, and the reason that I show the web UI first off is everything that we have in terms of our web UI for control and monitoring is also available in our cloud. And so I have another tab opened here. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to flip over to the cloud. And as I mentioned, it's all free. We use Amazon Web Services or AWS IoT Core as the back end to our cloud platform. So, you know, it's when you think about cloud, you think security and storage. The reason we chose AWS is because I don't think that anyone, you know, would be very appreciative if we were to just have these in our server in our closet here at LEA. We do use a very secure platform with AWS. It's a 256-bit SSL security encrypted protocol. So industry standard and very, very accepted by IT managers all over the world.
Actually, if you don't mind, Joey, another question did come in. Somebody asked if they could actually see the actual rear of the amplifier, which I think was in the earlier slides, but I don't recall.
Yes. Tell you what, I'll do one better here. I've got one of our amps actually here with me, and so I'll try to get it as close as I can to the camera. This is our DANTE model, and so the only difference between the DANTE and the network models is basically these two ports right here, which is your primary and your secondary DANTE ports. But this is your control port for control and monitoring, and then again, primary and secondary DANTE. AP mode buttons here. We have all of our input stage of connectors. Again, these are all an Amphenol Anytech input connector, as well as output connectors here. By the way, our amps accept up to, so on the low powered models, they accept up to a 12 gauge wire on the output stage. And then on the higher power 350 and above, they accept up to an 8 gauge wire. So should be plenty of room there for wiring. We do have an I/O port. This works as a simple contact closure for remote on or off of the amplifier. Power button. This is also removable. You can grab pliers and pull that right out so no one can tamper or power cycle the amp. And then a locking IEC connector. So
great.
Hopefully that helps.
Also, another question, would Crestron control devices be able to mute or adjust levels or change presets?
So the answer is yes and no. So mute and adjust volume levels, yes. We do have full control for that via Crestron. Basically, there's roughly 500 elements in our amplifiers that it controls and or monitors. The reason I say no to presets is that's coming soon as well. We call it snapshots, basically, where if you want to change, say, one DSP preset to another DSP preset, just with a click of a button, that's coming in a later firmware revision. So at this current time, no for that, but coming in a few months, yes. So.
Okay, great.
All very good questions.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't make you lose your spot there.
No, perfect. Just wanted to make sure there were no others that were coming in. Okay. Well, let me go back to the cloud here, and I'll run you through that real quick. So again, with our cloud, all that you need is an email and a password. And so I have my test account set up here. And so all that I do is I click login after I get it set up. And the nice thing with our cloud, the big differentiator is that we actually monitor by venues. We call it venue level grouping. And so essentially what will happen here is that inside of the cloud, you'll see all these different venues. By the way, you can see my screen okay, right, Greg?
Yep.
Great. So basically with these venues, you can set them up however you would like. You know, I have a venue set up here. You can see with an amp online, we use our emojis in the cloud. We also have a green sidebar that'll turn red if an amp drops offline. And you can then sort too by error status at the top. So if a venue's having an error, it'll bring that all the way to the top. Or of course, you can search by a specific venue name. So to build out a venue, very simple. All that you do is you click the plus sign up top here. And then basically you can type in whatever you'd like. So we'll call this Technic HQ. And I'll click add venue. And so then you'll see Technic HQ is right here in our list of venues. Of course, there's no amps that are online. So to add an amp into that venue, all that I do is I click in the venue. And then I go up here to add amp button, click on that. And with AWS, it's very simple. We just generate a security token. So I take and I copy this token. I'm actually going to pull this into a different browser window, and I'll put these next to each other just so everyone can see. And so basically here in the web UI, with this token copied, I find whatever amp I want to onboard. I click on the eye icon and go up to Connect Amp to Account. I take and I paste that token and click Register. So what will happen with AWS is that you can see it was a success with our cloud platform. And so what's happening now is that there's no amp here yet in Technic HQ. That's okay. It's going through a validation process with the AWS server. And so once it completes the handshakes with the server, it'll then take and it'll onboard that amp here into Technic HQ. And from there, you'll be able to go in and do any type of control and monitoring, just like the web UI that you would do on site. So a couple of things with our cloud. You don't need any VPN. You don't need any on-site PC. So it's very, very intuitive. You don't have to go out and sell any extras to your clients. The other great thing too is that it gives you the ability to potentially sell a service or a maintenance contract and really be able to add another line item as a differentiator to those service and maintenance contracts. So as you can see, as I was talking there, my amp is now here in Technic HQ. And from there, I can go ahead and click into the amplifier. And now I have full control and access just like I do inside of the web UI. So by the way, I've got the web UI in dark mode. I can flip that. I can put it in light mode if I want. Same thing with the cloud here. But so if I refresh the web UI, anything that happens inside of the cloud is also shown inside the web UI. It's full two-way communication. So the cool thing is with our smart amps, you can actually go in, you could tune an amplifier from the cloud if you really wanted to. Say maybe someone didn't pay their bill, or maybe you were having an issue on one of the zones. Well, if I go in from the cloud here and I mute channel 1, you can see it pushes over virtually instantaneously into the web UI. And vice versa, if you have a tech on site and they're making adjustments in the web UI, let's say I unmute, well, it pushes back into the cloud, and same thing, it's very, very quick in the cloud. So again, all the same navigation. You can load in a speaker tuning from the cloud if you need to. You can do everything other than there's only one thing we don't allow you to do, and that is here in network settings. We gray out this menu, and that's just so you don't accidentally knock yourself offline and not be able to put yourself back online with our cloud platform. So that is the cloud. Again, very simple to use. It really takes that extra step, and as job sites are harder to potentially get into these days, and you're moving at a speed that's much quicker too. You can log in remotely, from a different job site, from Bora Bora if you're on vacation. Can remotely monitor, check health status, do whatever you need to do with those venues. So, okay. So in the last few minutes here, I do want to run through just a couple other things in the web UI, or I'm sorry, in the PowerPoint presentation. One of those is just really how LEA stacks up to the competition. So this is a very quick competitive matrix, and I won't spend much time here. But as you take a look, we ran through the feature set of our products, which is a very robust feature set. Of course, too, size and form factor, being that most of our products are in a 1RU, it helps you save rack space. But as you look across, we win. When you look at our feature set, our form factor, and price, price is not something that I've talked about. But price is also not something that is an objectable factor to LEA products. Actually, you will not be price disadvantaged. In most cases, when you look at all the major players out there, you will be priced advantage when you specify an LEA Connect series in your projects. So lastly, I just want to talk quickly on how we do business as a company. We've seen a lot of things in the industry. We've seen a lot of manufacturers make mistakes. We've made our own mistakes. We've really tried to learn through that with our 200 years plus of experience inside the industry. And so our business model is very simple. We want to serve you, the system integrator, and that's so you can serve your customer, who is the end user. And so we do that through our partners, through Technic. I believe David Henderson is also on here with Henderson. They help serve Technic and the whole Northeast region. We also really try to stand behind the product too. We're a new brand to the industry, but we are not new as people. And so we really stand behind the product with our warranty. How that warranty breaks down is that it's a 6-year warranty on our products. But the first 3 years of that warranty is an advanced replacement warranty. So if you run into any issues with the amplifier, essentially what will happen is we will send out a brand new unit with a call tag to send the old unit back. It's a no hassle warranty for the first 3 years. And then for the remaining 3 years, you do have to go online and register the serial number anytime within the first year purchase. We extend it to 6 years in total, and the remaining 3 years is free parts and labor warranty. The other thing too that I want to mention is, of course, when you buy through Technic, you get the Technic advantage. Of course, they have their highly skilled sales teams to assist you. You can bundle over 300 different brands, as I'm sure you're well aware. One of the major benefits, they have the big savings advantage too. So you're getting the same prices that a dealer would get direct with manufacturers, and that's huge. We have very good margins built into our products, our pricing structure. That was something that was very important to us. And then you have simplified logistics, and they can also offer some custom services with their fabrication shop. So I just want to end with saying that we have seen also very outstanding quality in our products. So in the 2 years we've been around, we have, I think it's approaching 8,000 plus units in the marketplace. And what that means is that we don't have a service team. We haven't had to hire them. And that's really just speaks to the build quality of the product. If a product does come back, and I can honestly say it's been very, very few, it's brought into our engineering lab and they dissect it, figure out what the issue is. But I think in the grand scheme of things, not having a service team because of the little amount of product that has come back is pretty impressive, especially for a new manufacturer name. But that speaks volume to where we come from in our heritage. So that's all I've got. Greg, I just wanted to thank you for putting this together and for coordinating with everyone on the call. And with that, I think we wanted to turn it over for some Q&A, correct?
Yes, sir. There's only one question in the queue at the moment, and that was estimated time on the availability of the 2RU.
Great question. So the 1504, we expect that to start shipping in Q4. So that will be available this year, Q4 of 2021. So we will also, I'll expand on that too. We will have a 3004 that will also come out. That'll be sometime in 2022, probably springtime. So that'll start shipping, several months after the 1504. But the 1504 should do pretty much everything that you'll need when it comes to a larger install. And by the way, just to mention differences on the 1504, there'll be 2 different smart power bridge channels on that amplifier. So it can also be a 3000 by 2 as well, which is pretty cool. So
another question that came in, is there an app or is everything web-based?
Yeah, so everything is web-based. We really did that for simplicity, being an IoT cloud-enabled amplifier. I will tell you, in the future, we do have plans to have an app. And basically what that'll do is we have plans to be able to get like a push notification into our products when you have an event or a fault. So that's kind of where we're going, but that is down the road.
Okay. I would say last call for any other questions. Give them a second here.
All good questions.
Yeah, engaged group here today.
Yeah,
I don't
Really
see it.
appreciate you guys taking the time. And the other thing too that I'll just mention is, one thing that we do ask is give us a try. If you guys like what you saw today, give our Connect series a try when you find a project that meets the spec, and see what you think for yourselves. One of the cool things, as I mentioned early on, is we do have inventory, so we would love to help. We also have a very skilled technical team, which is based here in South Bend, Indiana. So, of course, if it's something that's over your salesman's head or whatever, we will definitely get you in touch with them, and they can give advanced troubleshooting or just recommendations on system design or whatever. So.
Oh, I did see another question pop in regarding heat being a big trouble. Can you explain anything about the thermal protection advantages, if there are any, in the LEA line?
Yes, that's a great question. And I failed to touch on that earlier. So a few things for that. With our Connect series, they are in a 1RU form factor. So we pull air in through the front and we push it out through the back of the amplifier. We have 3 cooling fans mounted right behind the front panel of the amp. So one of the great things about our design is that you can stack our amps right on top of one another. So you don't have to have any spaces in rack right there. So that, of course, keeps rack space as a premium these days. It lets you fit as many units as possible in. I think we've had well over 20 RUs stacked on top of one another, no overheating or cooling issues at all. And our fans are variable speed, so they will spool up and slow down depending on the load that's driven into those. So no issues at all when it comes to that. And we do have thermal protect too. So if by chance it would go into thermal, the amplifier will go into that state and also send a fault out with that event and the timestamp of that. But it'll just reboot itself if that happens. So.
All right. Don't see any more in the Q&A panel, but as everybody could see, who joined us today, the LEA amplifier is engineered with a host of features you're really not going to find anywhere else on the market. They're super easy to control, configure, install. Thank you all for joining us today, and thanks again to Joey Palkowicz. As mentioned, TechNec is currently stocking several models in the line, and if you need any help, certainly reach out to your sales engineer, and of course, they're available through the web portal if you've got a dealer login. Thanks again, Joey, and everybody enjoy your day.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it, everyone. Have a great day.